Join me, Harriet Gould, for the Lab Matters podcast to hear fascinating stories every week from the inspiring people behind the science. In the next episode, I speak to Philip Broadwith, business editor of Chemistry World magazine. Join us to hear Philip explain what made him choose journalism over molecules. Today we've got Philip Broadwith with us. Philip is the business editor on Chemistry World magazine. He's also a ballroom dancer, a lecturer, and a prize winner. Philip, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You didn't always want to be a writer. You were initially more drawn to drugs, or more specifically to the pharma sector at least. And I just wondered if you could just talk us through what drew you to that area.
Well, Harriet, from school, I was interested in chemistry. I had some really great chemistry teachers, particularly towards the end of school, really made everything interesting. So I decided I wanted to kind of pursue that as a potential career. I did a year in industry between school and university at Glaxo Wellcome, as it was then, now GSK, of course, in Hertfordshire, and that made me think, yes, this is the place for me. I went on to university, luckily enough to get into Cambridge, doing natural sciences, and followed that with a PhD, half in Cambridge, half in Oxford, because my supervisor moved. But all of that time, I was kind of thinking, I want to go into pharmaceuticals or agrochemicals, or somewhere where I could actively be in the lab discovering new molecules. The problem was that I was heading towards the end of my PhD in about 2008, which was not a good time to be being recruited into the pharmaceutical industry. Companies all over the world were kind of laying off staff left, right, and centre. There were lots of highly qualified people who were much better at that kind of thing than me in the market for jobs. And at about the same time, I kind of realised that also, while I liked the practical work of chemistry, the mixing chemicals together in a lab, love that, the thinking about how to make molecules and which ones to make does not work in my head at all.
Wow. So you had to be pretty objective to make that realization and accept it.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that kind of became apparent over the course of my PhD. It was kind of, I really liked doing the practical work. I was quite interested in various aspects of chemistry, but actually where my interest was mostly was talking to people about the other stuff, the other chemistry that was going on around in other groups in the department, in Cambridge and in Oxford, and not so much kind of focusing so heavily on the actual problem that I was trying to solve. Which I got to the end of where I needed to be, I had a fantastic time doing my PhD, with a very supportive group head, Jonathan Burton, but it was clear that wasn't going to be my career in the end. And about halfway through my PhD, I entered a writing competition with the Daily Telegraph, and that's what kind of changed things around, because by some kind of miracle, I managed to win that competition. I had some very good advice from some friends about how to kind of improve the writing that I was doing. And that then led to a few opportunities to write with various other outlets. I got a couple of trips to conferences, and that was where I met actually one of the Chemistry World correspondents, I think Catherine Sanderson. And at that point, that was when I went, well, that sounds like a really, really cool job. That sounds like exactly the kind of thing that I want to do. So at the end of my PhD, I applied for a graduate training scheme at the Royal Society of Chemistry, because that's what was available at the time. There weren't any jobs going on Chemistry World immediately, but I was extremely fortunate that a few months after joining the RSC, a couple of positions came up on Chemistry World, and I managed to get one of them, and I've been there ever since. So 15 years now.
Ever since, wow. You said you got good advice before you entered that writing competition. Do you remember what it was or who it was from?
Well, so I had some friends who had a bit more experience of writing various things, and I kind of showed them the piece, and they asked me, not necessarily told me what to do, but just kind of asked me some really probing questions about the way I was writing things for certain people, and who I was, to think about who I was writing it for, and that kind of thing, which really improved my entry. And over the years, that's the kind of thing that I've constantly sought to do, both through in my own development as a writer, but in the way I edit the magazine as well, is to try and not just improve each piece, but to develop the writers and make sure that they understand why I'm making changes as an editor, and how that process works.
Mm-hmm. Yes, think of the reader, I guess. Um, and it was always Chemistry World that you had your eye on, and none of the other magazines.
Well, I've dabbled in writing for other things. I used to write a lot of the match reports for my local cricket team, that kind of thing. But yeah, no, in terms of career, yes, Chemistry World. There are very few magazines like Chemistry World that really focus in on chemistry, which was my passion, but to do it in a journalistic way. So to get there was to get a job there was a real kind of dream, I guess, initially. And I work with a group of people who are smart, great at what they do, funny to be around, and I'm reasonably well remunerated for it. So it would take a lot to make me move.
I can imagine. And now, as you say, you've been there for 15 years. And I mean, you obviously love it. It's very clear. But I wondered if you could give us a bit of an insight into ways that you managed to keep it fresh for you and for the people reading it.
Yeah, well, I mean, over those 15 years, I've done a variety of different roles within the magazine. I started as a science correspondent, which is, hands down, from my point of view, one of the best jobs for someone coming out of the lab who's interested in a broad range of science. You get to talk to the most interesting and varied people all over the world, and they want to talk to you generally about exciting things going on in chemistry. It's fantastic. But then over the course of my career, I've moved into more kind of editorial roles, where, again, you're still seeing that variety of things, but you have the opportunity to shape the agenda and decide what the magazine is going to cover. And as the business editor, that's always been a bit of an interesting one. We have a very broad remit, so there are lots of other kind of news outlets that are very specific to certain sectors, but for Chemistry World, we want to look at things going on across various sectors and find the most important things in all of those areas. So it keeps me on my toes with a very broad base of stuff to go from.
Mm-hmm. You're here with me, Harriet Gould, for the Lab Matters podcast. If you like what you hear, please rate us on your favourite podcast platform. And subsequently, you've covered, therefore, a huge number of stories in that time. I wonder which you think's been of the most consequence to cover.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's lots, but I guess in recent history, the coronavirus pandemic was, I mean, it was bizarre because we had to completely change the way we worked, to everybody working at home. But then there was a huge hunger from a totally new audience to us, and our existing audience, to know what's going on in industry, what's going on, what's going on with the vaccines, what's going on with various different aspects of industrial influence on that coronavirus pandemic. It was a really exciting time to be involved in that field. I mean, even though it was a complete nightmare of a situation for the world, it was, you know, for me, it was an exciting time to be doing my job, because I had a window into a whole area of what was going on in terms of vaccines, in terms of the antiviral developments, in terms of new ways of working for industry, and very different environment, because there was a lot of collaboration, which had the seeds of things, this kind of pre-competitive collaboration had been going on beforehand, but the pandemic seemed to accelerate a load of those things as well. So it was a really interesting time, and I think that Chemistry World's coverage of those things going on at the time really helped people both in industry and even outside of the chemistry community through our website know a little bit about what was going on with a degree of authority in the actual science, as well as what was being said elsewhere, which you might say had varying degrees of veracity.
It's quite rare that we have a situation where the research is so new and the policy is being made immediately, and it's a really rapid cycle, and it changes so quickly. So I can imagine the excitement.
Yeah. It was definitely a fascinating time and an exciting time.
You said that there were the seeds of some of the aspects of it were already in the pipeline, as it were. Was there anything in particular?
Well, I mean, so industry has been the way the chemical and particularly pharmaceutical industry has been operating is changing vastly, and that's driven by a variety of different things. There are lots of really big cross-sector problems at the moment. Sustainability and carbon management, for one. There's a lot of things that are going to require industry to work together to solve those problems. Not just companies that might have traditionally been competing with each other are going to have to kind of go, well, hang on, this is a thing that all of us need to do. Let's work together on the bits that don't have so much kind of commercial significance, and let's do that collaboratively. And those kind of movements have been going on for a little while now, particularly in that sort of sustainability area.
It'll be interesting to see how they pan out. And now, yes, so you've been at Chemistry World for 15 years, but Chemistry World in its current iteration, i.e. Chemistry World, as opposed to Chemistry in Britain, as it was previously, has been so for 20 years now. So what can we expect from the 20th anniversary year of Chemistry World?
Yeah. I mean, I actually joined the Royal Society of Chemistry at the back end of 2003. So I had a couple of issues of Chemistry in Britain, and then I sort of had Chemistry World from its beginning. So I'm a sort of, I have a little special place in my heart for this at the moment. But so we, as the magazine, we're trying to think of various different ways that we can celebrate 20 years. We've got a series of articles looking back at some of the things that we were talking about in 2004, in that first year of Chemistry World, and revisiting some of those topics, not necessarily always kind of with a retrospective view, but kind of saying, well, that's what we were talking about then. Where is it now? Where is it going in the future? One of the projects or we've got various projects going on in various different ways, looking at people and topics and their changing relevance over the 20 years lifespan of the magazine in its current form.
It'll be exciting to watch all that unfold. And of course, the members get the magazine, but anyone can go on the website, chemistryworld.com.
Yeah, absolutely right. And if you give us a little bit of data, you can have more than just a few articles. Yes, I mean, when we write stuff in Chemistry World, the intention is that it should be accessible to more or less any reader with a general interest in chemistry. There should be enough meat there for the more technically minded, but it should be accessible to more or less anyone. That's part of the Royal Society of Chemistry's charter objectives to improve dissemination of research and science, and Chemistry World is a big part of that. So, yeah.
Which is why it was so popular during the pandemic.
I like to think so.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly going to keep you busy this 20th anniversary year. So you probably won't get much time in the ballroom, for example, these days, or even on the cricket pitch.
Yeah. I mean, yes, those are kind of my two, I guess, extracurricular activities. Ballroom dancing was actually how I met my wife now. So at university, I was initially dragged along by a few girls from my college, whose class was short of men. They lasted about a term and a half, and I carried on for my entire undergraduate and postgrad time and beyond. Unfortunately, the arrival of small children has sort of dampened the ability to go out in the evening. So it's on a little bit of hold at the moment. We get a little bit every now and again, but yeah. But on a cricket field, I would classify myself as more enthusiastic than skillful. But I play for the local club. I used to do a lot of. I used to be the secretary, so I used to do a lot of volunteering for the club. And my 6-year-old is now kind of just starting to develop his own skills. He's cricket mad, so over the summer we'll be out, both of us, in various forms with bat and ball in hand.
Wonderful. Are you glad that he's interested in cricket?
Yeah. I'd be disappointed if he wasn't, but he's his own person. He's got to make his own choices. So I can encourage and I can provide the opportunities, but I'm not going to force him to do anything he doesn't want to do.
Oh, that's nice to hear. So then you'll of course be at Lab Innovations, which is in October this year at the Royal Society of Chemistry Theatre. You've had that gig for quite a number of years now as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I think I've been going for over 10 years to the show.
We'll have to watch this space to see who you'll be introducing on the day. But we've had some pretty interesting people over the years.
Yeah. I mean, so the objective of the RSC Theatre is to provide a little bit of diversity and interest to the delegates of the show. So it's the idea is that the speakers are related to the aspects of laboratory life that delegates are involved in, but not necessarily directly. So some things that we had some stuff about chemistry of tea bags recently. Over the years we've had chemistry of marijuana and various other things, trying to just kind of provide that bit of broadening of people's interest out beyond their kind of daily life. And there are other theatres at the show that do much more technical stuff, which is equal. That's a really important service. But what the RSC Theatre is about that kind of breadth of interest.
I think it's nice for people to get a feel for how certain aspects of the science is used from an application perspective in real life, completely relatable, whether they're technically minded or not.
Yeah, it's interesting because it is a bit of a mixed audience. We've got some of the technical lab people, but we've got some people who are a little bit more kind of managerial and whatever. So the challenge with our theatre content is always to make it accessible to everyone that's there, and interesting enough to everyone to kind of catch everybody's imagination.
Well, we'll continue to do our best. Well, thank you, Philip. It's been really wonderful talking to you. I appreciate you sparing the time and look forward to seeing you in October.
See you there.